So I made clear that these comments were reprehensible. She expressed a deep sense of remorse. She offered to resign, and I accepted.
Welcome to New York One's Off Topic on Politics. I'm New York One reporter Bobby Cuza. Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani continues to build out his administration, naming 5 top appointees this week, though only 4 of them remain. Catherine Almonte da Costa resigned Thursday, one day after she was named director of appointments after a series of old tweets surfaced in which she denigrated Jews. Needless to say, this was an embarrassing misstep for Mamdani, who also learned on Thursday that Mayor Adams is stacking the city's rent guidelines board, potentially thwarting his promised rent freeze. And then we will talk a little bit about Kathy Hochul's week, which included announcing her support for one of the most controversial issues to come before the state in recent years, physician-assisted suicide, also known as medical aid in dying. And I'm joined this week by the hardest working woman in the New York One newsroom, Bernadette Hogan, our statehouse reporter, who just came from Staten Island from a Mamdani news conference. You were in Staten Island like 5 minutes ago.
Right, but I drive like a maniac. So hope none of those red light cameras or the other cameras dinged my car.
You can expense those.
Yeah,
no big deal. And Ayana Harry is with us today, who was with Mamdani yesterday.
Yeah, it's been a busy week.
Mm-hmm.
It sure has. Although, for our viewers and listeners who are interested, we normally tape this podcast on Thursdays and it's released on Fridays. This week, we actually are retaping our original podcast.
You have to tell them that. Bob.
Well, you know, I like to give people a little window into the
people
inner
going.
workings of what happens here.
Too much news going on.
Well, the thing is, there actually wasn't a lot of news as of yesterday, as of like Thursday afternoon. Right. In fact, we kind of talked about how Mamdani wasn't really talking about anything.
Right.
And then this big story broke. So now we're talking about Catherine da Costa. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to actually read, because I hate when we do this thing in the media where we talk about something offensive that happened, but we don't actually explain what the offensive thing was.
Yeah.
So I wanted to read her tweets, which I should mention were from 2011 and 2012. But let me just read a few of them. I think the one that was probably the most offensive was one where she said, "Money-hungry Jews shaking my head," using SMH, the abbreviation. And then in another one, she said, "Woo, promoted to the upstairs office today, working alongside these rich Jewish peeps." Later, she posted, this is the following year, she posted, "Far Rockaway train is the Jew train." And there's some other ones like F the police type stuff. But
right.
I think these were all flagged by, I believe they were first uncovered by the Anti-Defamation League of New York and New Jersey. And then this got out in the media, and then next thing you know, da Costa resigned on Thursday afternoon. So I personally, when I first saw the news, I thought, well, maybe the Mamdani people are going to try to weather this. You know, they'll say that it was a long time ago, and they'll apologize and say it doesn't reflect who she is as a person now, and then to hope that people would forget about it.
No.
But that's not what happened.
No, and it wouldn't have been wise to try and weather it. I mean, what she said was unacceptable, and she has said so herself, right? And so I think to try and make excuses for it or to think that people could look past it would be unacceptable. And look, Zohran Mamdani has certainly faced questions in terms of, you know, what kind of New Yorker, what kind of mayor will he be for all New Yorkers, including Jewish New Yorkers? We've heard from, Jewish New Yorkers who've expressed concern, saying they fear that anti-Semitism may become more prevalent in New York City under a Mayor Mamdani. So to not address this directly and head on, I think would have been a huge misstep. And it sounds like from what the mayor-elect is saying, Cat da Costa went ahead and took the step of offering to resign before he had to potentially ask for it. And yeah, it does raise the question, this is someone who's had a career, she's been working for a few years.
Yeah.
How was this not flagged in the past for previous roles that she was tapped to serve in? But yeah, I think that this is the only way that they could move forward, particularly when she's the head of appointments
Right.
and her job is to
It's
steer
almost
the
ironic.
vetting and hiring of people,
Right.
and yet there are questions with her own vetting. So I think this was the only course to move forward. I'm glad that she has accepted responsibility and apologized. And, the mayor-elect has said, I'm changing our vetting policy and how we're going to look at people moving forward. And he said he feels confident with the 2 people who were named to positions on Friday. So Hopefully this was a learning lesson. I mean, I guess it could have been worse. I don't know. Maybe this is teaching them a lesson before things
Right.
get out of hand. And maybe it's a wake-up call that perhaps they need to slow down and double check exactly who they're hiring.
Right. And to the point about the vetting process, Mamdani said early Friday that he would change the vetting process. Okay, but what's the process? I did a story earlier this week, I think, about how they're going through their over 70,000 resumes. And one of the questions was, well, how are your background checks going and who's doing this? I was told the co-chairs of the transition are. But I mean, this is just case in point of, a top appointment, ironically, that they're going to be, or would have been, the head of the appointments for the
Right.
transition. And their record clearly is not clean. The other aspect of it that Ayana mentioned is the fear and the massive criticism that Mamdani would not have a place in his administration in New York to specifically protect Jewish New Yorkers. Like, this is now his worst nightmare because those criticisms are now, I mean, not true, but coming to fruition, it appears, right?
I mean, I was thinking, like, if she had said something offensive to blacks or Hispanics or gays, like that
Right.
would have
Like,
been
of all
bad enough.
groups, yeah.
Would have been
Right,
bad
of all-
enough, but,
of all the
but this
groups
is
to
his worst
offend.
nightmare.
Right.
Right. And the question I had for him was like, well, number one, so to go through what Mamdani responded to today, which was, did you know about this? Did you know about these comments, these tweets before? And he said no. And if he had, would he have hired her? And he also said no. He did not say whether or not he asked her specifically to resign. We do know that she handed in her resignation. But again, the larger point is, why should New Yorkers then have much faith with how the transition team is vetting people? Or do we just, become cynical and say, well, they're really making hires based off of the recommendations of allies and friends of the campaign? I mean, you already had supportive tweets from Councilman Lincoln Ressler, the Democrat from Brooklyn, who tweeted actually in support of DaCosta, before she ended up handing in her resignation, talking about how, she's the mother of Jewish children and she's a great friend. And although we have no specific linkage, but it's like, it really raises the question, well, are just friends of allies getting appointed? I mean, that's the negative connotation here.
Although I will say, of the appointments this week, I mean, we can talk a little bit about the other people who were appointed, but they are experienced
Yes.
people, and a
They've
lot
been
of them
around,
worked,
yeah.
and a lot of them
For
worked in the De
de Blasio.
Blasio administration.
Yeah,
And I should
Sharif.
say, I mean, not to excuse DaCosta's tweets, but I mean, it is worth mentioning, I think. She is married to a Jewish man, and like she said in her statement, she has Jewish children. These tweets are from 2011 and 2012 when I think she was 18 or 19.
Yeah.
So she was, and honestly,
Yeah.
like, I would,
The issue isn't her. The issue is the vetting process.
Right. Right.
How
No,
did
well-
you miss this?
I don't know if I would say this is his worst nightmare, because I think New Yorkers kind of get like, these were statements online. This was a long time ago. But
Yes.
it's still, I think
Yes.
it could have been worse, and he's almost fortunate that it wasn't worse in
Right,
some political
right.
sense. But yeah, it was still bad.
and when I was also going to mention, she did work for the De Blasio administration.
Right.
I mean,
Right,
she
which
was like
raises
like
the question.
Then too.
I think she was like an executive assistant. Like she actually worked like fairly high up in City Hall, fairly closely with De Blasio, and nobody else found
Right.
this in
across
her background.
Across the board, this is problematic. I mean, regardless, yes, like everybody. Regardless, again, the point is you could have done a key search into Twitter. There is that function X where you can search. You could search a handful of offensive terms and just see if somebody has raised that.
Right. I mean, she's no longer using this same username. So
Right.
I think
Yeah.
it took a little bit of extra digging to find these
Right.
messages. But clearly the ADL did the digging and
looking
found
for
them.
it,
And
right.
so I think that also raises a larger question of, as we begin
Yes.
to enter 2026, how are employers, how are, how is the city going to vet people? And are there employment, firms out there that
Yeah.
have the capability to quickly look and do
Right.
a deep dive social media search on people, which seems like needs to happen.
Mm-hmm,
I don't know if that exists or not, but in the age of AI, it seems like it should or
Right.
could.
I mean,
but-
I haven't dug into her social media history, and like you said, I think this might have been an old user name
Yeah,
that she was
yeah,
an old
'cause
account
I
that she was
did
using.
Just do some looking into her.
But
account.
young people these days, they have been using, they've been
Dad.
posting on social media for for years, and there's so many social media posts out there.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah,
honestly,
there's this line between like saying things that are dumb when you're young and saying something that's like anti-Semitic.
yes,
right?
no, I totally agree.
Right.
But what I was going to say is I would not be, and I mean this is just speculation, but I wouldn't be surprised if she didn't even remember having done that.
Oh, absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
she would have. I mean, maybe she would have raised it as to the administration.
I agree.
And that's why, again, it's like not necessarily like on her right now. Again, I think the spotlight should again be on the process of
Right.
how this transition team is rolling out big appointments. And, hopefully for them, it'll like, give them more of a pause or, I don't even know what law firm, if they're using a law firm that's doing background checks. I asked if DOI had done one for his 2 top appointments of first deputy mayor and chief of staff. Don't know if they passed that yet.
By the way, the ADL, which apparently found these old tweets, they had just a few weeks ago, I think, announced that they were going to be playing this like watchdog role
Yes, well, that's the other
over
thing,
over
yeah.
the Mamdani administration, and then
Which
they got
received a lot of criticism.
Yes,
Yeah.
they got pushback.
Yeah.
That this was like this was overkill, right? That they were sort of painting the Mamdani administration as like preemptively suggesting that they were
Right.
going to be doing all
Sure,
these anti-Semitic
sure.
things. But then this now they are kind of vindicated because lo and behold, one of his first appointments, this gets uncovered. So I guess worth also mentioning the fact that he made these appointments this week. I mean, like I said, there was 5, which is now down to 4. That same day that he announced DaCosta, he announced Jamila Edwards, who, she's going to have the intergovernmental affairs role, which,
Big role.
these are all like behind the scenes roles. They're not that public facing. They're not the sexiest titles, but she's going to have an important job because she has to go to Albany and lobby for all of these
Yeah.
policy priorities that need state approval. Free buses, universal childcare, potentially a tax hike.
Taxes.
And then the budget director was announced on Thursday. And today we got 2 more
2 new deputy
appointments.
mayors. Right, today.
Which is including a new deputy mayor position.
Right. So new deputy mayor position and splitting the current. Right now we have a deputy mayor for housing and economic development. It looks like he's splitting it into deputy mayor for housing and planning, and then a new deputy mayor for economic justice. So he appointed Layla Borzog, who is currently in the Adams administration, was influential in the city of Yes. From what I've heard, she's good. She's someone that has been able to put her head down, do the work, and housing will be a huge focus of the Mamdani administration. Everything from his promise to freeze the rent, which now might be complicated with Adams appointing new and reappointing people to the Rent Guidelines Board. But again, like the development and how they'll see through City of Yes and all these different neighborhoods and like the multifaceted challenges that will come up with that. And then the Julie Su will be the head of economic justice, and this is Mamdani's focus on workers' rights. And she comes from Los Angeles. I didn't get to read the article before, but the New York Times asked her about some complications with how she handled unemployment, the unemployment system or program in Los Angeles. But she's not a New York hire, I suppose.
It's interesting though that he's bringing on an Adams person,
Right.
Which I guess Jessica Tisch is another example of somebody that he's
right.
a holdover.
But housing is an area that Mamdani
Right.
has praised Adams
Yeah.
on in City of
Good-
Yes.
yeah.
So it's not completely surprising that, he's saying this is what's working. And so let's continue.
Right. So let's talk about Mayor Adams because we had thought maybe this was coming, but we weren't sure. And then late Thursday, we find out that Mayor Adams, as you said, has in fact essentially made 4 appointments, 2 appointments and 2 reappointments to the Rent Guidelines Board. So, for people who don't know the how this works, the Rent Guidelines Board has 9 members. They're the ones who vote on rents for rent stabilized apartments. And so the whole thing with the rent freeze is that Mamdani was going to appoint people who were inclined to freeze the rent. Now, on his way out the door, Adams is reappointing people, whereas, if he had done nothing, these
Right.
people's terms in many cases are already expired. So Mamdani walks in and appoints new people. Now Mamdani can't appoint his own people to those 4 positions. It seems like obviously Mayor Adams is perfectly within his rights to do what he did. And I'm sure, in his view, and I'm sure City Hall would argue that, he's doing what he thinks is best for the city. But he's clearly sabotaging Zohran Mamdani, right? I mean, there's no question he is trying to thwart one of his major campaign promises.
Right. And New Yorkers aren't interested in what Eric Adams thinks is best for the city anymore. Right. Like he's in
Mexico.
There was going to be no support for him in a Democratic primary, and there was very little support for him in a general election. That's why he dropped out. So yeah, this is certainly him trying to exert his influence in the Mamdani administration when, it's clear that there's a new vision, a new direction that New Yorkers voted for, and this is his effort to stop part of that.
And I'm thinking of a press conference that I covered. It was like sometime before it got warm last year, so it was like your intermittent like March, April months. Mamdani was standing outside of City Hall, and he was trumpeting that I will make my new appointments to the Red Guidelines Board. X amount will be coming up, and I will freeze the rent. That is a clear commitment that I have.
Yeah,
it goes to show this is like a lesson in like almost negotiating in public, right? Like maybe don't be so transparent with what you are going to do or can do, because there's always a lever to be pulled by the opposition forces, which in this case is Adams, who continues to hold the keys to City Hall.
Yeah, but I don't know if he would have had as much success as he did without that. I mean, like three-word slogans in politics work effectively well. Freeze the rent, like even if people understood that it wasn't going to freeze their rent, the fact that someone was talking about this concept, it was exciting.
Right.
But yeah, you don't want to promise things that you can't deliver on.
That you really can't deliver on. And I guess I was talking to someone yesterday because, all 9 members are appointed by the mayor, but they can be removed for cause.
Right.
Whatever that means. Apparently it hasn't been tried in a really long time. Mamdani could sue against this. He could do some sort of legal action to get some of these people off.
He could say that they're not qualified.
Or he could ask them also to step down.
Yeah.
They would have to accept that. But right now you have 4 people, right, if you count the 2 old, the 2 new, that one could argue do not agree with freezing the rent, and then you have the other 5. Mamdani will be able to appoint someone new within the next year. But all these people are appointed to 2, 3, and 4-year terms, so it's kind of all over the place.
Yeah. And I think, I didn't do the math, but I think I read, under the way it is now, given Adams' appointments, it wouldn't be till the beginning of 2028 that all of Mamdani's people would be installed.
Sure.
And he would really, and by the way, this is also a little clouded by the fact that legally he's not supposed to just tell his people which way to vote.
Well, that's the other thing. Totally.
I mean, it's supposed to be based on data and research.
It's supposed to be independent.
Right, and you're taking into account, all this data about the costs borne by landlords.
Right. Actual economic conditions in the city
Which
at
is
the
legitimate.
time.
Yeah, right.
So, but I mean, in reality, the political reality is like a lot of appointees to a lot of different boards, it's unlikely that someone appointed by Mamdani is going to take a completely different view than he does on a rent freeze.
Yeah, it's not how the cookie crumbles. Not in this town.
So, in this case, I think Mamdani is really kind of stuck in a tough place, although he and I think some other allies came out and said last night and today that he's still going to implement the rent freeze. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess he's going to try to find some way to do it.
Right.
Yeah, he said he's just as committed. So
Mayor Adams, who, by the way, we think might be in Mexico.
Right.
Europe, but not New York City.
Yeah.
Right. Definitely not New York City.
As far it's kind of hard to tell where he is.
I didn't know Europe was also on the cart.
Yeah,
I heard that as well.
Reporting that he may be going to Europe after Mexico.
So he's now been to Mexico, Albania, Uzbekistan, Israel, New Orleans,
Boston,
New
Hampshire, and Vermont, Rhode Island, Massachusetts. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Just in the last couple months.
Yeah, 2 months.
No, 2 months. I mean, Errol made a good point the other day where he was like, if this were a private company, one could argue that, you're not doing your job, your paycheck. You should not get a paycheck.
And the other day after Adams, this already feels like it was a long time ago, but on Monday or Tuesday, Adams gave this speech that you were at, Ayana, that was, almost like a farewell speech when he ran through all his accomplishments.
Yeah.
And they had the time capsule where they put in all these symbolic mementos. And as he was leaving, I think a Daily News reporter asked him about the trip to Mexico, which he had not and still has not really talked about publicly. And he said, it's none of your business, when he was asked if he's going to, why he's going to Mexico. And then a few minutes later, he said he plans to smoke a cigar, single malt scotch, and having fun is what he's going to be doing while he's there. I guess he also might be looking for a job.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what he's doing after he gets out of office.
Yeah, the speech was unique. I mean,
unique describes a lot of things.
Well, I take that back. It wasn't unique. It was classic Eric Adams.
Right.
He spent the time talking about his accomplishments. And he said, look, people are going to talk about me being the first mayor who was indicted. But damn it, don't forget to talk about all of the great things that I did as well. And, I will say and acknowledge that there is a track record of some success within his administration. It does get overshadowed, but in part because, one, I think the way the mayor communicates and his team communicates, I don't think they've ever really had an effective strategy of communicating the wins that he has had with the public. And then he was like combative. Like there's still so much talk in his farewell speech about haters and haters being your waiters and, all the people who didn't believe. It's like, this is your moment to just like talk about the positive and drop the mic. Like, why continue to turn to the negative? He's talking about Chris Summerfeld, and then he's going back and forth with Katie Honan, and it's just kind of like, you could have had a nice moment for yourself, and this is exactly why nobody remembers the good, because it's like you almost drag the conversation back down yourself.
Right.
And then they put each deputy mayor had an opportunity. By the way, I feel like there are more deputy mayors now than ever.
Yeah.
They kept announcing, like, I was like, when did we get a deputy mayor for trash containerization or whatever?
And a lot of them we don't even really know who they are because
he didn't either. Apparently, didn't he not get the names right?
It was a little all over the place. But they each put something into the time capsule, which will be opened in 10 years when he's still around and could watch it be opened.
And the time capsule, which I didn't realize this, even though I was watching your piece, I walked into City Hall last night. It's like a tomb they dug up the street.
And if you walk by, I guess there's a little plaque. Yeah, but if it wasn't for the plaque, you would have no idea that it's there.
I literally stopped and I was like, wait, where is it? And I thought it was on the other side of the fence.
No, it's just like
it's like people are walking by it. No other mayor has done, right? De Blasio, Bloomberg?
Not
I don't
as far
think
as
so.
Back as I looked, I didn't see any other mayor that had done this. But it was, a tribute to the Adams administration accomplishments. And like, when people open them 10 years from now, I don't even think they're going to understand, like they're going to be like, what? Like, why is there a green garbage can in here? Like, why is there a piece of the piece of a drone? Will they even know it's a piece of a drone? Like, it's going to be, they're like, look at this ancient technology.
Artifact, yeah.
Like, it was in nothing's,
But,
a graduation tassel.
It just strikes me with the man. I mean, like you said, he certainly has accomplishments that he can point to, but it's just the way he has behaved these last few weeks.
Yeah.
It just seems like it seems totally atypical of what you see in a transition. Even if the people who are handing over power don't agree with their successors.
Adams has been typical.
Right.
I mean, can we even compare it to like the federal transfer of power? You know what I mean? Like, but
yes, this is like January 6th, and I'm just.
But no, but you know what? Right? Yeah.
In reverse.
But like Adams, it's like there's no even smokescreen about it. He's like, yeah, I'm looking for a job, and I'm also going to travel, and also like I'm the mayor, and I can do what I want.
Yeah.
Right, but that's been his motto pretty much from the beginning.
I know.
I'm the mayor and I can do what I want. I mean, from the very beginning,
Right.
when he first hired his brother, right?
Yeah.
When he brought Phil Banks in, and we were all like, wait, what? Huh? This person, that
Everybody
person?
that
Of all the qualified, of 8.5 million people in this city, these are the most qualified people. And his answer from the very beginning, from day one, is I'm the mayor, I can do what I want. And his answers at the end of year 4 is I'm the mayor, I can do what I want.
Right.
Which by the way goes to show that maybe we are holding Mamdani to a higher standard than we were holding Adams, because Adams, I mean, clearly the kind of vetting that we're expecting now kind of went out the window when Adams was hiring people like Phil Banks, who was like
report on all that.
No, we did,
knew-
of course. We
yeah.
all reported on it, but Adams just didn't.
But
really
there's nothing
care.
you can do though. Like
Right.
literally, there was nothing. There, like we can report on it, and like all that we can do is provide information. I mean, he wasn't
Right.
up for election again until now.
Right.
The only thing that could have happened is Governor Kathy Hochul could have removed him from office,
Right.
which she threatened. She has the ability to do that under the Public Officers Law. And the city council also did too under the charter, but with different circumstances, and they did not pull the trigger. The governor didn't, but she threatened. She said, listen, you need to replace all these people that are causing massive problems and also under investigations. And if you do not, I'm going to have to do something because now it's looking bad on me. And like he did make those changes. Jessica Tisch was one of those people. She's now going to be leading the NYPD under Mamdani. The FDNY commissioner, he's leaving. But it's like all of a sudden these replacements are made and you didn't hear anything else bad about like those agencies.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we are going to take a quick break because I want to talk a little bit about Kathy Hochul and her support for a very controversial issue when we come back.
So I'm proud to announce that after weeks of negotiating with the legislature, we are now going to be making medical aid in dying available to New Yorkers going forward.
All right, I'm going to talk about a controversial topic, and you can tell how controversial it is because we can't even seem to agree on what to call it, right? I mean, we keep sort of tiptoeing around. Is it medical aid in dying? Is it physician-assisted suicide? Is it
Legal suicide?
Is it euthanasia? Is it right to die? So, this has been around for years, and Bernadette, I know you've covered this in Albany, and Kathy Hochul finally this week announced she was supporting it. There's going to be some amendments to the existing law, but it seems like the legislature will make those amendments and then she's going to sign it into law probably within a month, right?
Yeah, very soon into the next session.
And but it seemed like she really wrestled with this issue, which is obviously very emotionally charged.
Yeah, I mean, she wrote an op-ed in the Times-Union, the Albany big paper, and she wrote about how she was at a Catholic mass funeral and she was listening to the priest and was thinking about how, like in the Catholic faith, I'm Catholic. You believe that you are trying to get to eternal life, right? That's why Jesus died on the cross and was like, live your life for the eternal life. And so her argument or her thought process after listening to this, at being at this funeral was, if I have to make a decision on this bill that would legalize physician-assisted suicide, I am not talking about ending life, I'm talking about how to let people die so that they can live on whatever they believe in, which, okay, that makes sense. But it's also, and also I'm sure for her, she's in her late 60s. She grew up Irish Catholic. You are taught that taking your own life is a sin. I mean, the sanctity of life is super important. It's the Catholic Church, patients' rights groups, disabilities rights groups, but the Catholic Church in particular is very against this because, you put yourself as a human in the shoes of God, right? He who giveth, he can take away, right? So Hochul made this decision and look, let me just back it up. This has been a bill that has been in the legislature for at least the last decade. When I first started covering Albany in 2017, It was always around. You always had advocates, but it never was going to move. I mean, even if you look at how close the legislation was when it passed the assembly, very tight margin. And you had Democrats that voted against it. Now the governor is saying, we need to have some additional things. So what it would do is it would legalize medicine, lethal medicine someone can take if they have a terminal illness and have a diagnosis of 6 months or less to live. Have to have that. And also, now she wants to put in a mandatory psychiatric evaluation and a mental health evaluation, which a lot of states don't have. They also would have to record themselves, either audio or video. I think New York State would be the only one that has that. And it has to be a New York State requirement.
New York State
residency,
resident,
right? So someone couldn't come here from another state and take the medication.
Right.
The other thing that already was included in the bill was you needed to have 2 doctors sign off, and you need to have a witness that is not a relative and wouldn't stand to benefit from the death. But it's so controversial because, you are talking about something that clearly people are uncomfortable with. And there's, one patient advocate I was speaking to said, say, for example, the state of, I believe New Mexico was supposed to have like a study on like listing cases of abuse and how often it was used. And they either ran out of funding or just never did the study. And it's been 3 years since it's been.
Interesting.
So, I mean, the slippery slope argument is very real. And I think that also this bill was passed at the end of last year's legislative session when all the attention was on the very intense mayoral primary down here.
Right. And when even now, I mean, we're in the last couple of weeks of
Right.
the year, so there's not that much attention to what's going on. But I mean, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
I will say though, I mean, the Catholic Church seems to be the most powerful force, I think, against the bill, right? At least,
Yes.
I mean, like you said, there's patient rights groups and others. But I was interested to see, I saw that there was a Siena poll, not the most recent Siena poll, but at some point it was
polls
been asked.
popularly.
Yeah, it was 54% in support, only 28% oppose, including a plurality of Republicans. So it doesn't even really
Yeah.
break down along partisan lines as much as you might.
And I wonder if it's an argument too of like you would make that decision maybe not for you, but you support it for someone else, which is the abortion argument that I've also heard, which
Right.
is like not for me but for you. But I think when people come down to it, like I interviewed a man who said he was diagnosed with prostate cancer last year and it was stage 3, and I was like, "Well, would you have taken it?" And he was like, "Honestly, I don't know, but I just would want the choice
Right.
to decide."
And she talked about her mom.
She talked about her mother. Her mother had ALS, and she was like, it's a horrible disease, debilitating. She didn't get to see me grow up to the woman I am. I mean, grow up. I mean, she was able to see her through adulthood, but didn't get to see her become lieutenant governor, I don't believe. But yeah, it's a tough one.
All right, well, this is kind of a downer, but
And it comes on the heels of Cardinal Dolan resigning. So it's kind of like, it's interesting the way that the Catholic Church, also under Kathy Hochul, like a lot of legislation, I mean, even the Child Victims Act, right?
yeah, and Hochul will
A
have
lot
to,
of losses
and Hochul will also have to
the
decide
church.
on a lot of other bills before the end of the year.
before the end of today.
Before the end of today? I thought
Yes.
she had till the 31st.
So she has a couple bills that she had called down to her desk, right? Because she's second floor of the Capitol. And the deadline is this evening. Actually, on all of them except for medical aid and dying bill and a bill that would change judicial redistricting. It's fascinating.
All right, well, you're going to be busy today then, as if you weren't busy enough already. Bernadette and Ayana, thank you. That is going to do it for this week's episode. You can always watch our political coverage on Inside City Hall on New York One, Monday through Friday at 7. And we love your feedback. Send us an email at yourstoryny1@charter.com and subscribe to Off Topic wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you're hearing, leave us a review. Thanks to our producer, Anthony Roman, off camera in the corner. And we are off for the holidays. We will be back on January 2nd, covering the inauguration of Mayor Mamdani. So happy holidays and Happy New Year.